I'm Tanja K. Johnson, and this is Voices of Color, a writing podcast. I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there before I begin the episode. This story breakdown is going to involve criticism of a very highly acclaimed show. If you are a fan of Game of Thrones who does not appreciate criticism of the show, then this episode will not be for you. The writers who give their opinions are people who are unfiltered and unafraid to say how they truly feel about a piece of writing from start to finish. If this is not what you want to hear, then I suggest you tune out now. I'm Tanja K. Johnson.
I'm Alexander Christian.
And I'm Gabrielle Brown.
And this is Voices of Color, Story Breakdown Edition. Today we're going to be coming to you and talking about Game of Thrones, the entirety of the series, and how we as writers interpret it. How did you see the foreshadowing in this show?
Just so I'm clear, we're going with the show storyline and not the books.
Yes, we are not going to be talking about the books because that's a whole other beast that is completely different than the series because we can be going back and forth talking about the comparisons forever. So Let's just stick with the show content.
Okay. I love the foreshadowing of this. I think it was so subtle in the beginning that we didn't understand what we were looking at. Until about season 3, I really didn't understand how vague and how delicately he told us what would be happening next. So it took a very long time for me to start being able to recognize the foreshadowing.
That's a really good point, Alex. And what do you think about that? The fact that, like you said, it was really subtle. Do you think that they should have played it up a little bit more, maybe? Like so that people could have understood it and picked up on it a little bit sooner?
I think they should have for the TV show, yes, definitely. For the source material, he's writing to his audience, so he knows what they're doing. Like, R plus L is very broad. It's very vast. That could mean anything. And he's like, I told you at the beginning of the show how this all, and it was. The thing about foreshadowing is when you get to the end of a thing, the end of a show, story, whatever, when somebody asks you what it's about, you can usually boil it down into one sentence. And that's fine. But if you can do that before the show is over, you've got a problem. And before the show was over, it's one of those things where halfway through the explanation, you just bow out and say, you got to watch the show.
Interesting. I'm not going to lie. I kind of missed a lot of stuff, I think, as far as like the foreshadowing goes, because I don't know, maybe it's just me and you guys can chime in on this, but I did not see anything leading up to Bran taking the throne. Like I was super confused. Like I felt like that was just a complete and total, just like out of left field kind of thing. And maybe you guys picked up on some foreshadowing that, kind of spoke to that happening. But I feel like I just did not see that coming at all.
I can only say this. If it was foreshadowed, it was done too lightly and too late in the game for it to matter. Foreshadowing is also about pacing. And if you don't do it right, it's not going to mean anything. You're just justifying your means. So with Bran becoming the king in the end, winning the Iron Throne, not even winning, he was given it. I think it was kind of foreshadowed when they go through the history of the Starks and they say how the first king was named Bran and how pretty much all the great Starks were named Brandon. Maybe that was the foreshadowing, but that was tied into the lore and the world building. So it's kind of hard to pick apart what is foreshadowing and what is history in this show. And that's the kind of combination that I love and die for in fantasy. So I'm really excited to talk about some of these topics with you guys today.
Yeah.
He told the Night King where he was. He knew that he was the history of the world. He didn't do that because he was going to die. It is so subtle that it could be us giving them credit they don't deserve. You know what I mean? Like some of this stuff happens so subtly. For example, the Red Wedding, they were playing the Reigns of Castamere. Tywin Lannister was the power behind the throne because his father was a very weak man. His mother had a spine, but his father was a very weak man. A bunch of people borrowed money from them and wouldn't pay it back. So Tywin Lannister had the entire family killed, the children, the nephews, the pets, the farmers. He wiped out an entire royal house. And at the party the night before, they played the Reigns of Castamere over and over again. So after that, anytime somebody crossed Tywin Lannister, he would send them a small heart. So at the Red Wedding, when they sat down, they were playing the Reigns of Castamere.
Gotcha.
But that's one of those things that's so, you know what I mean? You have to be so deep in the lore to catch something that subtle.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where people have problem or disconnect with the show versus the books, because the books, it gives you all this information. But in the show, you're kind of picking up bits and pieces, and it can get murky. There is an issue there. But if you know both content, then you really get it, and it drives it home, and it's amazing when you catch it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, how close do you hold their feet to the fire in translating 900 pages to 2 hours? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. I mean, but also just in writing in general, writing always gives you more depth. I think it's a lot easier to do foreshadowing in writing versus in TV and movies, because the person just can immerse themselves, the reader or the viewer can just immerse themselves so much better, and it's just easier to pick up on stuff, and you can go back, a page or two if you missed something or whatever. But it's so hard because the actors have to portray it just right. Like, there have to be very subtle nuances like the music and stuff like that, and those things are really easy to miss. So sometimes it can be a lot harder to do foreshadowing well in a TV or movie format in a way that the viewers actually pick up on it and get it.
I've been kind of monopolizing the time, Kiki, so if you want to jump in, I'm acknowledging that I'm a chattermouth.
You always are, so I make allowances. But I did want to talk about some of the foreshadowing that the writers planted into the story and just failed or neglected or refused, I don't know, whichever one of those you want to use, to implement at the end. So if you're going to foreshadow something, you can either make it a red herring or pay off that foreshadowing. So my issue with some of this writing is that they foreshadowed a lot of events happening and they never came into fruition, or they just threw them to the wayside and forgot about them. And these were some really big things, some things that fans have been speculating about for almost a decade, and they never paid off.
Okay, let me tack this before we roll on. Typically, a book is a singular vision, and I think that makes a world of difference. So, you've got a different director for every episode, you know what I mean? And you've got so many chefs that they spoil the soup. And then there's so much in visualization that is projected. So I can make an expression to you that is my sexy come hither look, right? But you think I got food poisoning. So
yeah.
But that doesn't happen in print. In print, you are told what that weird face means.
Exactly.
I think there's a clarity when there's a singular musician writing the music and playing the music. You know what I mean? Just how clear a picture you can get. And then, you hand this over to a crew and you got a lighting guy and a cinematography guy and it all falls apart. Now, that was the thing I wanted to say about the other thing. But this thing, they had a whole bunch of threads that never got tied up at the end. But I don't think that when they started out, this season was going to be the last season.
We can talk about why this didn't get played out. We all know that, well, maybe the majority of people know that HBO offered Dave and Dan to further the series for pretty much however long they thought they needed to go. It was making them boku bucks, and HBO had no wish to stop it anytime soon. Dave and Dan wanted to move on to bigger and better things, and they put a halt. They said, okay, We got 13 more episodes in us. Let's start wrapping it up. And that is where we have pacing issues, story arcs not being completed and thrown off, complete plot arcs just jumping and going to the wayside. The world building that was all done in the beginning just trashed. There's like no purpose for everything that happened.
All right,
feels
so,
like
so
we
clearly
wasted
you
a
have
lot
an
of
emotional
time.
attachment to this.
Oh,
So-
yes. I spent nearly a decade obsessing over this show, making fan theories, going over all the lore, rewatching the seasons, and
hit me with a couple of the threads that are pinching your muffin.
I don't want to rag on the writers. This is not what I wanted to do here.
No, I mean, just as far as, even if we're just identifying them. So, like,
So, okay, let's just go back to my thing with the foreshadowing and red herrings, how I was moving into red herrings. There were things that were foreshadowed and foreshadowed many times. So in writing, they say foreshadow something 3 times. And that's usually going to give the reader or audience a clue, like, okay, look, this is important. Pay attention to this. This is going to pay off later.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I saw these things happen multiple times, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5 times. That this person, X, Y, and Z, John, was going to be the person to really make an impact in the long night. No, it did not happen. He screamed at a dragon, and that was it.
Yeah.
To say I was disappointed, I think is a bit light, but I just knew then and there that this was not going to be what I wanted it to be. So I just had to distance myself emotionally from the season.
Very curious, because I stand on the opposite side of that river, in the sense that
Great. I love that.
you've been telling us, it's like a murder mystery, and they keep saying John did it, John did it, John did it, John did it, and you get to the end and it's the cop. It's like, we can continue to march down this path that we have laid stone by stone for 10 years, or we can do what Martin would probably do and give us something we don't expect. Now, Martin would give us something we don't expect that we enjoy. But, you know, I think you had Raphael trying to impersonate Picasso.
I guess I kind of feel like on some levels, it was a cheap trick on a certain level. Like, I feel the writers wanted to be so different, or they wanted to be different so bad that they just pulled the wool over your eye. Like, to me, John, I wanted him to take over the throne, honestly, on some levels, because I wanted him to grow as a character. Like, he was kind of just a punk and copping out. Like, and I was, man, like, grow a pair, take responsibility. You know, those people that she burnt up, they're dead because of you. And I just wanted him to grow up, come full circle as a man and as a character. But I feel like they were just like, well, everyone would be expecting him to do that, so we're just gonna throw a orange in the middle of this random, you know, like it. Yeah. They just went so random and so left for the sake of, quote unquote, like being different. But sometimes just throwing in randomness for the sake of being different actually weakens your point.
I absolutely agree. In Iron Man, they kept telling us about the Mandarin. And those of us who read the comic books knew that the Mandarin is a powerhouse. He's, you know, like three layers levels below Thanos. He's a problem. And then, you know, they gave us the old bait and switch, and I was pissed about that. But if they did not pull the bait and switch, I don't see John's life ending any differently than Ned's. He was not built for politics.
And that's completely fine. I don't care if he lives or dies. I want him to stay true to his character. I'm serious. I wanted him to stay true to his character arc, to his plot arc, and to really just to come together, to have this cohesion and fullness at the end. And I felt lacking. You know, when you eat a good meal and you're so full at the end and you're happy and you're smiling and you undo the belt buckle and you sit back and you're like, oh, that was good. Yeah. I'm still hungry. I did not get my fill from this show. I feel deprived. So when John, who was supposed to be, why was he brought back from the dead? So he could have sex with his aunt? Sorry, I don't know if sex is allowed. So he could have relations with his aunt, and then not know anything for the rest of the show. That's just literally what he did. He followed her blindly, which was never, ever in his character arc. He struggled internally with his decisions, and he always prevailed and came above those. I understand that characters change and things happen and they become different, but we never got to see why he all of a sudden was puppy dog behind Daenerys. It just didn't make sense. And I don't know.
Didn't he do the exact same thing with redhead
Ygritte? He left her. He left Ygritte. He loved her to death, and he left her for his duty, for his people. So this is why I don't understand this. Gotcha. He dipped out on her. Okay. I he said, let's stay in this cave forever. And he's like, I got other plans, miss.
I will say this. I will say that I fear the foreshadowing that you missed is when Tyrion was no longer smart, the show was no longer smart.
Which I don't think that's foreshadowing. I think that might be writing. Because the show should always remain smart. Your writing should always remain smart. Your characters can be dumb as dirt. But your writing has to contain that integrity. And that was lost.
That was my feeble attempt at comedy. The moment Tyrion started making stupid decisions, that was the moment I start to deflate my expectations and my hope for this thing. Because that's what Tyrion was. It's like the moment when Batman is telling Superman, no, we don't do that. That's not right. You know, the whole world is upside down. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Throughout the show, there was so much redemption. And I'm okay with redemption. I'm okay with people changing and becoming something that they never were. Tyrion started off as one of the most ingenious people in the show. He ended off as somebody who fumbled through things that should have been simple for him. And we never got to see that connect as to why that happened. We never got to see why he digressed. I don't know if you guys caught that. If you can, like, please fill me in.
Oh, no. It's not that we missed it. It wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly.
I just didn't want to be feeling like that was the case when I missed something. And
There's
I watched it.
When they're interviewing the cast for the final season, and they asked Jon Snow, if you had to just sum up the last season in one word, what would it be? And his word was disappointing. They asked Tyrion about the final season. He was like, you know, they're fighting a guy who raises the dead, and we hid the women and children in a crypt. So, you know, maybe Tyrion's having an off day. And, you know, it's one of those things where you're at the mercy of someone else's typewriter.
Yeah.
And they just had to do the thing. But they understood even inside that world. It's not like, you know, the director pulled them aside and explained it to them and it made perfect sense. It's like, this is some bull right here.
I mean, they've been inside those characters for longer than the show has been out. So they know them. They know them very well. They've studied them. So this is their art. They understand these characters' motivations and where they should be heading because they're internalizing them so much. So, of course, if those clips are true, I don't know, because people can always manipulate things to make it seem like it's something that it isn't. I would be disappointed as well because it's betraying what I felt like my character should have been, where they should have gone.
All that work I put in.
Exactly. But you know what, though? I feel like they kind of made most of the characters digress a lot. I mean, even Jaime, like, I mean, he was doing so well, and then he completely and totally just went back to his sister.
That might have been a fan service, to be honest, because even if Jaime went back to Cersei in the end, I wouldn't have cared. That's fine. That makes sense because they came into the world together. They leave it together. Poetic. How he got there, which is the most of the problem that I have with the ending of this show, it just doesn't make sense. Jaime is somebody who's filled with honor. Even when he was doing dishonorable deeds like killing somebody, he did it for what he felt was honorable to him, his love, his duty, whatever his reasons are, he justified them.
Well, I think he was trying to turn over a new leaf. He genuinely had feelings for Brienne, and I feel like he was genuinely trying to turn over a new leaf, but when they were talking, Sansa was like, well, it looks like they're going to kill your sister. All of that he was trying to do just completely and totally crumbled under old Jamie and he went back to who he was and everything like that. Because even when him and Tyrion were talking that one night or whatever, when they were kind of joking around after he had slept with Brienne, he was talking about, he's like, you know, I'm just glad to see you're happy. And he was like, you know, Cersei tricked me into loving her. And Tyrion was like, no, you always knew what she was. You just ignored it. He was trying to be better. And then it all just crumbled. And he just crawled back to Cersei and crawled back to old Jamie and all that he was and wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think any of this had anything to do with the show. I mean, with the characters. I think it was about the show. I think they gave everybody what they wanted at the end. And they killed off the people that they had to make that roll out. So here's my thing. Jamie said long time ago, I want to die in the arms of the woman I love. They gave him that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tyrion wanted to be useful. They gave him that. Bronn wanted to be a lord. They gave him that. Sam wanted to be a maester. Like, everybody just got what they wanted. And this is not what Game of Thrones is about. I think they tried to shove a happy ending in a Tarantino film. And that's those are polar opposites.
Yeah.
I always knew that the show was going to have that bittersweet ending. And to me, the ending, like, so the placement of the characters at the end is okay to me.
Yeah.
Their journey to get there from maybe like season 6 to 8 is where I feel it fell apart, where things were starting to get really rushed and murky and strange. So if I think about it objectively, Bran being king is not the most horrible thing if it was foreshadowed and told correctly. Fine. And if he hadn't been like a human turnip for most of season 7 and 8, and all of a sudden in season, like in the last episode, he's talking more than he's talked in the last 3 seasons. I don't know. It just was really weird. Jon being at the wall again makes sense to me. He's north. Sansa being queen, that was always her journey. And Arya going off doing whatever she wants. Of course, that's Arya. So if I think about the character placements, I'm okay. It makes sense. The journey was weird.
But see, I think it's the writer in me, or the girl in me who grew up on Happily Ever After is kind of, but like, I don't know, like I kind of wasn't to a certain extent. Yeah, like they quote unquote got what they want, but they weren't any better for it. Like, so for example, like Jon, from what I've gathered or what I've been pondering, so I'm pretty sure that they told Grey Worm that they were going to send Jon to the wall just so he would be happy, because Grey Worm probably didn't even freaking know what the wall really was and yada, yada, yada. But of course, when he got there, the wildlings are there. And so he just left the wall completely and then, went off with them to the north or whatever. So if my understanding is correct, he didn't actually go to the Night's Watch. He just, kind of kept going and going to be a wildling now, I guess, or whatever. But he didn't grow as a man. Like, okay, cool, I'm just going to punk out and like roll off with the wildlings and just live out the rest of my days in the shadow of who I could have been. I guess that's my thing. I'm like, but like, you could have been so great. Yeah.
So this brings me to a point that I want to talk about, which is structure. So what kind of story structure do you think the show followed? You were talking about Jon Snow and how he came kind of circle on his journey. He didn't grow. He just came back to the starting point. That's the hero's journey. Even though, arguably, was he really the hero? I don't know. But Jon Snow definitely followed the hero's journey. What about the other characters?
I don't believe that Jon followed the hero's journey.
I kind of agree with that.
But if we are going to agree that he did for consensus, then I would say
no. Okay, if you don't think so, just argue that point back. Then, if you don't think he followed the hero's journey, tell me why.
Got you. If we're going to follow that point, then Jaime followed the hero's journey as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought the whole point of the hero's journey is to return to the physical place where you began, but as a different person.
Yes.
And that's not what happened. John
Mm-hmm.
returned to his second home as the first person he was. That was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely changed as a person. Him killing the person that he loved, watching all this death and destruction, and learning that I don't even know what the heck he really learned, but he definitely and that entails is a problem. If I can't think on the top of my head what this character learned,
Right. Like, what was the point? Why did I watch all this?
Yeah. And honestly, I think he returned almost weaker than I personally feel like John in this season was 10 times weaker than John in like season 1. Like, I don't know. Maybe
he did change, even though he didn't become better.
Right.
I don't know if the hero's journey, you have to be better than you were when you started. I know you have to change.
Mm.
Well, I think the word significant should be involved.
Mm.
Whatever it is that's different about John, we don't love it. We can't identify it. It's like, if I had a question at the end of the show, it's like, what did I watch all that for?
Yeah.
That's my question at the end of this. What did I watch all that for? So we talk about structure. Jamie was on an excellent journey that I don't believe is the hero's journey, because it is the opposite, and whatever that would be, because Jamie was always the hero, and we were waiting for the rest of the world to see it. Jamie had always been the hero. He had been abused by his father, and it turned into a twisted thing that his sister could manipulate, and then he fell in love with his sister, and then to be free, he sold himself to the king. And then the king used him. And then he became his own man, and he killed the thing he traded his entire life for. He was always the hero, and it was up to the audience to catch up to that. So he had a magnificent journey. The fact that A Rock got Cersei and nobody else upsets my soul.
I'm glad I'm not the only one, because
no, it's like the amount of don't forget, she tried to sell Tyrion's girlfriend just to annoy him. That's what
a horrible person she was. But she loved her children. And if she loved her children so much, she should have loved her unborn baby and given up this crazy scheme of keeping the Red Keep in King's Landing. It was ridiculous.
Here's the thing.
It was really ridiculous.
People don't understand what words mean. It's like, oh, yeah, she's a terrible person, but she loves her children. That's selfish. She's not doing this for someone she doesn't care about. She's not doing this because it's the right thing or because of principle. She's doing it because she feels a way about it. That is the most basic of biological responsibilities that you have. Oh, that thing I made, I support it. Oh, well, oh my.
I was saying that completely sarcastically.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just so you know, I was being very sarcastic.
Well, then I'm with you. Yeah, because she is I thought Ramsay Bolton died too quick.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
The dog should have started at his toes.
Okay, that's just your sadistic way. So
no. But that's look what he did to Theon, and not for any reason.
Just because he's evil. So, you guys are making me want to talk about so many things. So let's talk about cliches, tropes, and subversions. We can wrap those all up in one. There was a lot of tropes, and just for the audience who's listening, tropes are not bad. Tropes are good. Tropes are what makes a story. Cliche is when you don't do anything original with this trope. You just regurgitate it. That's when it becomes cliche.
I love when you drop that definition bomb on them like that.
We have to. We're educating. We're not just having fun here.
Preach.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the tropes that you enjoyed from this show. I have so many from the beginning, but I'm going to let you guys get some words in.
The smartest people are the poor people. They always have, well, he's of good stock and he's of fine breeding and he went to the best schools and all that. And Bronn just killed enough people that he could understand. You know what I'm saying? I've killed men on every continent. And you know what I found out? Kings and beggars bleed the same. There is no blue blood. There is no righteous folk. Priests. I've killed priests. They're terrible too. It's just all across the board.
I don't know if that's a trope, or is that just something? Because I don't know.
No. It's much more common in comedy. Because if you think about it, the like Inspector Gadget, right? So the cop with all the authority is a bumbling idiot, and his 6-year-old daughter is the genius who figures everything out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways to word that. Okay, cool.
But the fact that they stayed away from Mary Sue's.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a good Mary Sue if you're going to, if that's the point of it, right? Like I went and saw Captain Marvel, and the point of it is she's just supposed to be awesome. So, all right, if that's what we're doing, John Wick, Gary Sue, the man is just awesome. Gotcha. But if people are supposed to be people, break them and show me them break. You know what I mean? And they were very good at building people up, and as soon as they were comfortable, knocking them back down.
Yes, there was a lot of subversion in this entire show. They did a great job with making you think this was what's going to happen because of tropes, because of movies and media and books that we've consumed so many times, and we just know this plot like the back of our hands, and then they slap a red wedding on us. And you're like, yeah, that's different. That's not what I expected, but it makes sense because they foreshadowed it, and this is what the show is about.
I'm definitely going to say I enjoyed Tyrion's character and everything that he represented. He was the unappreciated, unrespected person who, unfortunately, because of circumstances outside of your control, had to become, the brains of the operation. And I loved how, and I don't know if anyone else caught or thought the same thing, but I loved how he actually kind of became like the thing that he initially didn't like. Like, I feel like he kind of became Cersei's to a certain extent. And I say that because, like, Cersei's big issue was just her pride, I think, on a lot of levels. Like, that's why she didn't leave the Red Keep at the end, because she swore up and down that she knew everything and she was so smart, and, she was going to destroy Daenerys with her harpoons and the armies and yada, yada, yada. And Tyrion at first, even though his intentions were great, he kind of fell into that too. Like, he was supposed to be, smart and know everything, and ended up trading in his best friend and having him killed, and following this woman and giving her power and not following the signs because he thought he was so smart. But it was very interesting to see his character and how they worked with that type of character. So I like that. I enjoyed that quite a bit, actually.
I think the thing about Cersei was not pride. I think she had Batman syndrome. She was that 6-year-old girl stuck in that angry period because mom left. And I think all of her power came from hate. She could just take a lifetime of hate and focus it on a singular point. And it gave her, a superhuman ability to persevere. But I don't think she was particularly proud or vain or smart, and she didn't think a lot of herself. She just hated everybody else so much.
Cersei was really a fascinating character, and I love her, and she comes into play with one of my tropes that I want to bring up. So the weak princess, the weak queen trope, that the woman just is going to lay there and faint and say, woe is me, and just be the damsel in distress. And this is especially prevalent in fantasy. Even though that's my bread and butter, I just can't stand it when I see weak women for no reason. If you're going to be a weak woman, you got to give me something. Like, she has to be weak for a purpose. So what they did to subvert this trope is they took characters like Sansa and Cersei and all the Dorne women and all the Martell women and the Tyrells. Like, they were fierce. They were strong. They were smart. They were strategizing. They came in with a plan, and they ran these men down like, look, you're just my plaything, and I'm really here for the throne, so just get out of my way. Sansa, however, did start out as the weak little bird, as the Hound called her. And she needed saving constantly because she didn't know how to protect herself. But in the end, she had been through so much trauma that she learned to guard herself, and she learned to think ahead and take on some of the smart or strategic parts of the people who had done these terrible things to her, and internalize them in a way that could protect her in the future. So she completely subverted this trope and became somebody who was the queen in the North, which I really love, that she was the person to free the North and become the queen.
My favorite line that Sansa had, I've only like 6 of the lines that she's had, but my favorite line of hers is, I am a slow learner, but I do learn. She gets it. She's finally self-aware. Oh, Joffrey, he's a golden lion, and I'm going to marry him and have 1,000 of his babies. You moron.
She was so young and so hopeful. They had to break that youth and that naivete for her to really understand and see the world.
Right, but that's what it wasn't what it was. Like, they all of the same stock, of the same gene pool, of the same house. She ignored what she didn't want to be true. And that's not a youth thing, because the rest of the Starks were pretty pragmatic.
Especially Arya, for her young age, she was just like, none of this makes sense.
And Ned was smart enough to realize, he's like, look, I get it. You're not gonna do dresses and balls and a lot. I get it. So, but here's the thing: we're still in the year 8, and girls can't be knights. So you'll train, but in private. You know what I mean? He was true to himself and to his code. And I don't hear people talk about how strong Ned was to let that lie sit on his honor.
Yeah, that's true.
His honor was everything. And he, for the sake of his sister's son, Varys came to him up in a dungeon. He's like, what do you think? My life is some precious thing to me? I grew up around soldiers. I learned how to die a long time ago, which is a beautiful line. He said, well, what about your daughter? And that broke him.
And this mirrors exactly what Tyrion said to Jon Snow when Tyrion was in the dungeon. And he said, look, hey, what do you think Daenerys is going to do? Do you think she's just going to let your sister Arya and Sansa just do whatever they want? No, she wants to make the world heal. So Jon paused when he was at the door, and that was a beautiful moment. And it was just like Ned. And he realized, wow, I got to make some changes here, or else the people that I love are going to die.
On the line.
Yeah,
exactly. Their honor, which is both of their pitfalls, was just kind of, it was blinding. It was something beautiful and something stupid at the same time.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say out of, sheer rage. Even Daenerys got what she wanted. Viserys got what he wanted. I want my crown. Oh, you about to get your crown, homie. And then she was like, I want to break the wheel so Bran can't have kids. Boom, will is broken. Everybody got what they wanted. It's like they just hate this material that they signed up. This is Game of Thrones. Everybody should have died.
I'm going to defend the writers here for just a second, even though you won't hear me do that much more often in this segment. I think the ending is George R. R. Martin. I think people getting what they wanted in these sick and twisted ways is part of his irony and part of his dark, grim storytelling capability. I don't think people getting what they wanted in these strange ways is bad. I think it's interesting. I think it's a way to play on a story that a lot of people don't think about.
I got no idea what we're talking about here.
Go ahead.
If we're talking about like Monkey's Paw, right, where you get what you asked for, but not what you want,
right?
That I can go with, but that's not what he did. He gave people what they wanted.
Daenerys wanted the throne. She wanted to break the wheel. She did not want a blade in her stomach.
No. But she didn't want to rule. She didn't want the power.
Yes,
that was the thing that came later. That's the thing of the Targaryen blood. But her whole intention, when this started out, when she was innocent and pure, was just to free the people. And by the end, her serving as queen was as tyrannous as anybody else. So she still got what she wanted, because her being on the throne would have been the undoing of all that she started out to accomplish.
I don't think that even crossed her mind. And I feel like saving the people, freeing the slaves, was all selfish and internalized in a way to prove to herself that she deserved it, because she's doing these wonderful things.
Really? I
do. Because
yeah,
remember the part of the story where Khal Drogo got all these women and they were being raped, and she stopped them because she felt bad. And then afterwards, she felt like these women owed a debt to her. She was so blindly trusting them after she and her husband had just ran through their community and killed everyone, thinking that, okay, I saved them from being assaulted, so now they owe a debt to me and they're going to be loyal to me. No, woman, you just helped destroy everything they know and love. And when the witch killed her husband after that, I don't think she even learned that lesson. She just continued to go through her life in this kind of shadow of, oh, I'm so great, I'm doing these great things. And every single one of these great things that she did just kept compiling on top of each other. And she never really learned that she's just selfishly doing these things. She's not doing them for anybody.
Okay, so
herself.
that is exactly the point I'm making. If you are in deception, right? So it's not like she came to the understanding that she was being selfish and she continued to do it. She still thought she was doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? That was the thing. She never wisened up. She never stopped to see that this wasn't altruism, that this was self-serving. Now, if she had and she continued to do it, then that's a different thing. But in her mind, she was still pure, and we all could see that ship had sailed. But I think she was doing this stuff because she really thought, hey, I know right from wrong, and I can fix the world, and blah, blah, blah. I'm impervious to evil or whatever madness was crawling through her mind. But like people like Bronn and Tyrion and Jaime, like they knew evil and they knew they were it. She had no idea she was broken.
But you know what, though? I feel like she couldn't have realized that she was broken to a certain extent, because that would mean that she would have to face herself and all the evil that she'd done. Like, if she can wrap all that evil up into the fact that, oh, I'm doing this for the greater good, it takes it off of herself to own up to it. But if she were to have ever truly looked at herself and examined herself and said, okay, yeah, that was all, like, I burnt down half the people. That was just unnecessary and purely evil. Like, she would have had to own up to that. And I don't think, I mean, that's tough. Like, self-denial and lying to oneself is, one of the easiest things for people to fall into on many levels.
Right. But I think self-denial requires recognition. And I don't think she had the recognition. That's my entire point. If I convince myself that, that I'm killing all these people because I'm cleaning up the streets and there's no conflict in me, there's not a part where I wonder if I'm doing, you know what I'm saying? If I'm just zealously into this, then, and that's the thing. I think she completely drunk the Kool-Aid. I don't think there was a part of her outside of the madness to see the madness. Now, I could be wrong, but at no point did she ever seem conflicted. She always seemed like, hey, I'm the rightful ruler of the world. Why is everybody not getting this? As far as pacing goes, the fact that they pulled this last season out of the wind as opposed to, running it out for 4 more years like they were supposed to. Yeah, everything was garbage.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you. All right. So what do you think about this? So I was kind of thinking about Sansa, right? Because to a certain extent, I kind of feel she kind of disrespected Bran when she was saying that she wouldn't, the North wouldn't bend. And I feel like she was being selfish, and I feel like that was her kind of getting what she wanted. I feel like she always wanted power and she always wanted to be a queen. Because if Jon would have taken the throne, I feel like she would not have been queen of the North. She would, the North would have been a part of the Seven Kingdoms. So why does Bran taking over somehow, and I think partially because she probably knew she had more loyalty of the North people than him, so she saw her opportunity to kind of undercut him and seize her crown that she's always wanted. Whereas if Jon would have been sitting on the throne, there's no way she would have been able to take that throne.
I think at that point Jon had lost his credibility with the people of the North after he bent the knee to a foreign queen. No. He definitely would not have been able to sustain the North. Sansa would have went back up there and people would have been grumbling for years and there would have been other issues. So I think it was inevitable that the North contained itself like it had been in the beginning. It needed to come full circle.
I think that neither of them would have vowed. I think we were looking at war. I don't think either of them had it in them. I think they would have talked and talked and talked in circles and then finally decided that we can't talk this out.
Jon, you're talking about Jon right now?
Yeah, Jon and Sansa. Jon and Sansa.
Jon had lost that backbone. If we're talking about the Jon from season 7 and 8, he had lost that backbone. He would have said, "Okay, I'm tired. I need to. I'll just rule. Take the North and rule it well." Like that would have been it, and Sansa would have been queen still. So maybe if it was the Jon from season 1 or 2, there might have been some squabbles, but he was tired. He was a tired man.
Okay, so who is your favorite versions of the characters? Let's say we went down the main cast. So who is your favorite Varys?
You can't even ask this question because everybody sucked in the.
I don't understand the complication. All right, everybody sucked in 8, but when Varys opened that crate and he had got the guy he'd been hunting for 23 years, I fell in love.
Oh, so when did it click? Okay, so let me clarify your question. When did it click for me that I really enjoyed this character?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Jon from season 2 is a completely different character from Jon from season 8, right?
Yes.
So which Jon is your favorite?
That's why I'm saying this question. Okay. I like Jon in season 3 the best.
When did he die? Was that season 5?
At the end of season 5, yeah.
5 is my guy. He was like, I don't care about tradition. I care about survival. If y'all are gonna kill me tomorrow, fine. You put me in charge, and while I'm in charge, I'm gonna do what I think is right. He was his father's son.
And then he betrayed that with Daenerys, his duty, his honor, his love for his people, his own survival. I know, I'm sorry. I just can't.
I am unable to can.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Like, I think Jon from season 5 was one of my favorites because, like, see, to me, that's who he should have been at the end. Like, he manned up. Yeah. First and foremost, he was just like, "Look, I'm taking over. I may not want this role or whatever as Lord Commander, but I'm taking it up, and I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability." Even when they killed, he still manned up, and he was like, "Yo, I'm killing all of y'all because that's the punishment, all the way down to the little kid." And he just was he was a man. I don't even know how to explain it, but like he just was a man of honor and duty, even when sometimes that duty was a little bit something that he didn't want to do. He did what he had to do for people that he was in charge of. And I mean, literally in the last season, like the last episode, all the way down, Tyrion had to make him think about his sisters. That's like the first thing I thought about. Like, this heifer like keeps going the way she's going, and she's gonna burn down everything, like and kill my sisters and my brother and blah blah blah. Tyrion had to get him thinking, and even then he was still arguing with Tyrion, like, bruh.
Why did Tyrion go back? So that wasn't the first time he had betrayed somebody.
Yeah, but the thing is, Daenerys has this dragon, and she could probably find him almost anywhere, and he has no allies. Nobody was going to help him. So he really didn't have any choice but to go back and face that music.
No. Well, maybe that's the case, but I disagree at all, because just like he set his brother free, he still had the illusion of power, which he could have used. Every time his life was on the line, he did what he had to do to survive. He never just walked into the lion's mouth. Ever. I
felt like then, at that moment, he didn't really have a choice because the lion was going to take over the world.
I understand what you're saying. She just
didn't have anything.
He didn't have any when he was in the moon palace when Bronn first killed for him.
That's when he was still smart, though. He's dumb. His mind is not even working as well as it used to be. So
right. So that's what I'm saying. The fact that he just agreed to go die was upsetting. It was really just because I mean, like even when he was like battle by combat. Will anybody fight for me? No, nobody. Oh, damn! This worked last time. But he never stopped trying. But he was just like he just walked. He took it off and threw it down the steps. I didn't think that was gonna end.
Yeah, I mean, his only option would have, if he wanted to try to avoid this, was to run away from King's Landing. He could never have gone back to Daenerys and talked his way out of it because she had gone mad. Yeah. You can't talk down a mad person. So if he didn't run, he was going to die.
Like, I'm responsible for this. I need to. But even that's not the Lannister way. All right, so that's Tyrion. When was your favorite Jaime?
I love Jaime in the hot tub. I don't know what scene it was in the bathtub with Brienne when he was telling his story and holding up his little nub of a hand, looking so pitiful, and and saying what really happened and why he was Kingslayer. That was when I was like, I love this guy. He is so misunderstood, and I have a weakness for characters that carry around lies. Oh. Give me all the lies. Give me all the lies.
Good Lord. Okay. That's what we're doing. So
character lies, so fascinating. Definitely.
At no point did I care at all about Stannis or Renly. The Battle of the Five Kings, it went on too long.
Those characters served a purpose, and they weren't there to really to like entertain or dazzle. They didn't spend enough time building him. Stannis was not somebody who built. He was flat all the way through until after he killed his daughter and he was in the forest and Brienne killed him. Then he was like, you know what, I'm done, I'm tired, this was all a waste of my time, I did terrible things and I killed the only person I really loved and it didn't even do me any good.
Exactly.
So that was the only time that I found Stannis interesting. That whole killing with Shireen was heartbreaking, but it was a well done scene. It was good writing there.
Yeah, that was perfection.
When Tyrion saved King's Landing and he slapped Joffrey across the face, when he was like, "She is your queen," he just checked him in public. That. When Tywin was alive and he understood that there was only so far you could threaten him because Daddy wasn't going to let it happen, Tyrion was a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope in the books, I know I'm not supposed to be talking about books, that we get an understanding of why these characters changed so drastically. Just please, George R.R. Martin, do that. Make me understand. That's all I want.
He don't understand that madness. He's like, I ain't read that.
This is his ending, though. They said that this is his ending. Yes, he even said that his ending is not going to be much different. It's going to be very similar. So I just want to know why Arya kills the Night King when that was never in her plot arc or even in her interest.
Who would you like to kill the Night King? Because
I understand that she. Okay, so in the show, they made this cheesy prophecy with Melisandre saying that you're going to shut the blue eyes, the green eyes, the brown eyes. And then she says it again, and then Arya starts running off and kills the Night King in midair. Fine. She was never interested. This was never her battle. She came into this and learned about it from her family. And even then, she never saw the threat. She never was face to face with a white, and her life was on the line. And she's like, wow, this danger, I got to stop it. She just did it. I don't know. I just have so many.
Yeah, I don't understand it. From the outside looking in, it sounds like you got a case of the supposed right? Like this, it was supposed to happen this way, that was supposed to happen this way. But what I'm looking at is from the character of Arya Stark. If you boil her down to one sentence, she is conquering.
She's an assassin.
No, she is conquering death. She is mastering death. She is conquering the fear of death, and the ultimate graduation of that is to kill death itself. So for me, that made perfect sense. But she wasn't What do we say to the god of death? Not today. That little girl didn't want to be an assassin. She didn't want to kill people for money. But she was fascinated with death. And for her to kill death itself seemed fitting to me. But I never thought of it as a profession. She was never like Braun. It was never about the money. It was never about the joy of ending lives. You know what I'm saying? For her, it was conquering. It was conquering these things that could not be conquered. I'm a girl and I will be a knight. I will not be afraid. I will be strong. I'll small, but I'll still take on Brienne of Tarth. It was about conquering.
Right. I understand what you're saying. Like, her character fits the deed. However, I don't think her arc or her motivations fit the deed.
No, absolutely
That's
not.
it.
Yeah, absolutely not.
So people justifying her killing the Night King by saying, yeah, she wants to conquer death, and her whole time, and what's the name of that place now? Her whole time training and becoming this faceless person, can kill anybody, can be silent in her attack. That's all good and great for her plan, for her motivations of killing Cersei and getting the rest of those people off her list. The Night King was never, ever even a dot, a blimp, a speck, a fly, a tick, a flea on her radar. He was just not there. It was all Jon's arc. It was his whole purpose. It was his whole journey. And for it to be like swept up and stolen by somebody who didn't even care about it to the last moment, it was underwhelming. It was just really underwhelming. I don't want to harp on it too long. Because you can tell it really attacked my soul for her to just get to kill the Night King, which was supposed to be the longest night that ended up being so short.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't. Okay, I got you.
If you want to argue it again, I understand what you said about her character being logically it could happen with her character because of all her training. However, I don't think her motivations fit.
No, we're not. We're not on the same page. We're reading the same book, but we're not on the same page. Here's what I'm saying. So Jon was always set to be king. He should have always been king. He was born to be king, right? Mm-hmm. And he never wanted to be king. So at the end of this, he either grows up and does the thing he's never wanted to do, or he gets what he wants and he gets to be nobody in nowhere.
Yeah.
Sansa always wanted to be a queen, but she didn't want responsibility. She wanted power, but not responsibility. She just wanted to be pretty and walk around and have people love her. But she didn't want to read charts and make battle plans. You know what I mean? She just wanted to be called queen. She didn't actually want to be queen. And so she grew into that. But the thing for Arya is Arya has always been fascinated with death. Arya was always moving towards being a psychotic loner who kills all sorts of various monsters because that was her thing. That was her love. That was her inborn innate gift. I'm not saying for Jon to defeat the Night King, that seemed, I don't know, that didn't seem like his purpose to me. His purpose was to sit on the throne. Right? Like defeating Cersei, that seemed like more of Sansa's thing to me. But for defeating the Night King should have been Bran's thing. If anybody.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's very true.
So
honestly, I thought Bran was.
Do you see how we haven't even talked about Bran? Have you guys noticed this? This is the first time he has been brought. Well, we talked about him in the beginning. He just got forgotten. That's what happened to him in the show. He went somewhere. We forgot about him. Oh, where's Bran? We don't know. And then, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all good.
This was his moment. So you're right. Him and the Night King face to face. The show down. The music is playing. It's slow. They're creeping towards each other. And you're like, this is going to be it. Bran is going to bring the three-eyed raven magic and just blast them.
Yes.
They stare at each other. They stare at each other and they keep staring. And then Arya comes down and stabs them. What? So in the beginning of the episode, he wargs into the ravens. And you're like, ooh.
Yeah. You're like, bring it.
What's going on?
The werewolves
and he
and
stays warged for the entirety of the battle. That battle was ruthless. It was bloody. It was hours. I don't know how long that about, but it was a long time for him to be doing seemingly nothing.
Nothing.
And I was hoping in the next episode, I'm like, okay, they're going to pay off this warging, because there's no way these writers who are getting paid millions of dollars are going to put one of the most pivotal characters using his magic in one of the most pivotal points in the show and not make it mean anything. What was he doing?
Yeah, that was completely pointless. I was shocked, to say the least.
Here's my question. Why was he doing?
What? Why? How? Where? What was? No.
All right, let's say
answer.
Let's say that he was in a bird and he was watching the battle, right? Was he giving locations and uptime updates? Was he passing messages? Was this reconnaissance? Or was he just what? What's up, Bran?
And then one of his final lines was about Drogon and him possibly warging or trying to find Drogon. For what purpose? We don't know. Because they didn't do anything with the dragons when it was important.
How did he not see a fleet on the open ocean with arrows the size
of... The thing is, Bran said in that council meeting, not in the council meeting, but when they were all deciding about who was going to be king, he said, "Why do you think I'm here?"
Yeah.
That made me angry. I actually felt rage boiling up. So you just sat there and chilled while thousands of people died, knowing that this was going to be the outcome, just so you could sit on the Iron Throne.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
But you didn't want it. So, what?
No, it's just so many issues with Bran's character and his entire story arc. He started off so strong. Like, he was the first character that you are inside of when the show, not when the show opens up, but the actual content of the show. Forget the prologue stuff.
Yeah, when we finally get into it, he's the
character. He's the one. And everyone has these theories that the story is about Bran. There's so much lore and history and world building. We've been talking for like an hour, and we haven't even talked about the world building yet. It's so deep. There's so much. And the name Bran is reoccurring constantly throughout history, and especially with the Starks. And he is supposed to be this person, this three-eyed raven, this person that is supposed to bring them this information to herald a change. Something. And he doesn't do anything in the show.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He stares. He barely talks. He acts awkward because he's the three-eyed raven. And that's it. I don't get anything. I love fantasy. I know this is supposed to be a low fantasy show. I love the magic. I love the lore that they promise. I love...
Yeah, low fantasy went out the window in season 5.
Yeah. So so with the world building, let's just segue into that. They promised so much with that. In this world that used to be, magic was prevalent. It was teeming, as rich as the life around them. It was real. Okay? But it went away. It died. But magic is coming back. And Bran is a really important part of that magic. And he doesn't do anything with the magic that he has. But wargames some birds and kills Hodor and does weird stuff for seemingly no reason. Why did the Night King touch him, and why was that important? Why was their connection important? What was the Night King's motivations? There's so many questions, so many promises that were never answered and just broke the trust that I have with those writers. I don't trust them. Okay. They are making promises and they're not fulfilling. So
can I use your bathroom? But I'm gonna watch. I don't trust you.
So yeah, if you guys want to talk about a little bit of the world building, that'd be good because we've already run over time. And
here's the thing. They touched on, I don't know, it's like we're talking about two different shows. After season 6, 7, and 8, different stuff, completely different stuff. When Tyrion and Ser Jorah, went to this far off land, it was like, cool, this is awesome. And, we met lizard skinned dragon folk.
You saw a dragon?
Yeah, we went down the door. Was
that Daenerys' dragon?
Yeah.
Or a completely different dragon? We don't never know.
And, and they took us around the world. We got to sail and see giant monuments from these other worlds that, existed before the men came from. All of that. Like, we got to see Valeria. And they didn't, I don't know. They teased all of it, and they went back and fleshed out almost nothing.
Yeah, agreed.
So, tip for our audience, our writers, our people who love fantasy, and this goes for science fiction as well. If you're going to build your world, that's also part of it. Okay. If you're going to build your world, please follow through on these promises. It's okay to have red herrings. It's okay to have things that don't lead anywhere, but do not lead your audience on a merry chase and do not give them the treat at the end. It doesn't have to be the treat they expect, but you got to give them something for sticking with you for all that time and listening and reading what you're putting out there. There's no way that I have watched a show for a decade and waited for these things to pay off and they just get forgotten.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen. It just should not happen.
Yes.
I will say this. Tanja is not only eloquent, but elegant, and she speaks with poise and tact, and that's not me. If you have an idea for a story, and your story is a smash up where every fictional creature is now real, right? All of Disney and Pixar and mythology and all of that stuff is real. And in this fertile garden, you want to tell me a story about a boy who likes a girl? I hope you have a sore throat on your birthday every year until you die. That is horrific.
You always have to bring it to a new level of something I can't even name.
I am so upset with this. He was the cultivation of 1,000 years of intense breeding and genetic screening. He was trained from birth to be the greatest soldier in the world. And now he runs an ice cream shop.
What? But that's essentially the beginning of the Kingkiller Chronicles. I'm not going to just switch up what we're talking about. But if you give me that, and then you lead it on to why he is now in an ice cream shop, and you give me that adventure...
Yeah, no. We're moving forward for the ice cream shop. It's just him, trying to get people to try the Tutti Frutti. That's it. We never.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
There's a better word for it than that. Upset.
Okay. Children of the Forest. They were kind of brushed off.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest issue with the world building that never connected, that never led anywhere, that never paid off, was the Night King.
Yeah.
So many times these writers said they want to subvert tropes. They don't want to have these characters or plot arcs be what the reader or audience is expecting. So why give us a villain that is just villainous for the point of being a villain? There's no reason behind his motivations other to bring an endless winter and kill everybody.
Right. And what is the point of that?
There is none. And they defeated him in one episode. So think about that in terms of chapter in a book. Maybe that would be two or three chapters if you're really going to stretch out a battle scene. No. It just I just can't everything in me that is a writer rebels against that. It rebels because you set up so much, not just through a couple little pinpoints of foreshadowing. I mean, from the very first scene in the show, it was this high charged energy that, look, this death is coming for everyone. And it does not matter if you're a man, a woman, your sexuality, your race, it's coming for everyone. Mm-hmm. And your petty mortal squabbles do not matter. So after they defeat the Night King, what happens? We're back to the squabbles. I just wanted to tear my hair out. Really. Mm-hmm. So the whole point of the show, which was to tell us that mankind, get it together. because there's a bigger threat. The threat is wiped out. And we're back to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they dropped the ball on that.
There were so many opportunities that they just completely, totally missed with the Night King and all that he was. And that in and of itself was kind of a letdown because literally we've waited all these years and through all these seasons. And we finally see him. We finally see his power. And there's literally no point to any of it. So it's kind of like, what? Like,
the man was unburnt. Okay,
Yeah.
Daenerys burnt him with a dragon.
Yeah.
He came out smiling, smirk. That smirk was a hint, a glimmer of intelligence, of something that was more than just a mindless beast destroying. That was a man behind that.
Exactly.
So don't give me that smirk, that little glimmer of hope that I have that something is going to be more than what this really is, and then just dust it off.
I got a question for you. So why wasn't Jon fireproof?
We don't know. Jon never got burnt. And I'm mad about that. I wanted to get burnt.
If he wasn't her,
That's what I thought they were going to show us when the dragon showed up.
I was hoping for that. If you gave me that, and if he died from dragon fire in that moment, I would have been happy.
If he died from dragon fire and now we don't know what to believe, that would have been
exactly. That would have boggled my mind. That would have been something.
I might have took a plane trip.
To where? What?
I will fight you in your office. What does it mean?
Okay, sorry, I cut you off with the dragon fire.
No, but that was my whole. I was just like, wait a second. There was all kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, shouldn't he have been at least fire resistant?
We have no idea what he could have been, but Viserys, her brother.
Oh, he didn't.
Him being burnt by the metal. Should that have happened, or is it just fire? We don't know.
How did her hair not even burn?
In the books, it did burn.
Okay, hallelujah. Got some sense. I guess because.
And in the book, she wasn't really impervious to magic. I think it was just that one-time deal. Impervious to fire. Sorry.
Yeah, it was the birthing process.
Right. So this whole unburnt thing, I don't know if it's really what it should have been. And speaking of things that weren't in the books, Arya, that prophecy with Melisandre, never happened. She never even meets Melisandre in the book. So
yeah, there's no need to.
That prophecy tying in for her to be the one who killed the Night King, it's garbage.
Yeah. I mean, they had to do something. So they're like, oh, we need to be different and we need to whatever. So, they didn't want to give us what we were all expecting, that either A, Jon, or B, Bran would be the ones to kill him. So they had to somehow tie her into it and, whatever. But, I mean, because even the connection between Bran and the Night King, that to me was kind of pointless. So now I'm kind of like, well, what? Like that could have been such an amazing thing for them to explore, but they just let it die. Was there, what was the reason that the Night King could touch him? Like, was it because the Night King was made by the people of the, I mean, I don't even know. Like, there were so many avenues that they could have taken, and they just let them all just crumble.
I got a question.
I know we have a bunch of questions, and we could probably keep doing this all night. But
all right, so the Night King touched him. The forest. The Hound. Really? Really?
The Hound really won.
Your brother's dead. He's very dead. It means you want to dead him like what? Why are you throwing your life away again now? What are we doing?
Yeah.
I just think the fact that he was walking around doing what he likes best, which is killing and hurting people, was too much for the Hound to bear, and he had to stop it.
Well, you know what?
So
I feel like it was
there was a dragon torching the city.
I feel like the battle between them was it's just good symbolism. I enjoyed that piece because, and I like how they tied it in even with Arya, because it was kind of foreshadowing what her life could have been, because both her and the Hound were consumed by revenge. Like, that's all they cared about. Like, she literally counted names, repeated names, like, you know, of the people she was going to kill or whatever. And I think it was a great parallel to show the Hound and how he's quote unquote getting his moment of revenge, but how literally empty that is. Like, A, because revenge is just whatever, but then B, because literally his brother is dead already and can't really feel anything or whatever. So you're quote unquote getting your revenge, but it's not even worth it. In the end, you end up dying. You know, he ended up dying with his brother to quote unquote get his revenge, and just the whole emptiness and the whole pointlessness of it. I thought that was pretty cool. And like I said, I like how they tied that with Arya, because she could have been down that same path, but at least she kind of let it go.
I think he was smart enough to see that. You know what I mean? He was like, all right, he's already dead. And even if I kill him, I'm going to die. I guess he was just like, I'm going to die. Let me do this before I go. Because nothing else makes sense about how pragmatic he was. He was so practical. Even when he hung the guys, you know, who had killed his little farm family of communists, he immediately, like, he said, wait a second, before you kill him, because then they get all hard to move, let me see if his boots fit. Like, he was very practical. So I
feel like that's what makes his need for revenge and the emptiness of it even better, because like you said, he was a very practical man. So to constantly be consumed with and go after this revenge against his brother, it was the most impractical thing he could do, and it was absolutely pointless. And in the end, like, I feel like he did obviously get to that point where he was like, well, this was pointless. But I feel like it literally wasn't until he was in the midst of fighting his brother, and then he was stabbing him, and like no blood was even coming out. And he was just like, and I feel like that was like this moment where he was just like, dang, like, this was
that was some really good comedy, like a really good element of comedy in an intense scene. And that's something that I like to try to recreate in my own writing. Slicing some heavy moments with something that can ease the tension off and help you build it back up for an even bigger moment.
I absolutely agree with that technique. What was so stupid to me was he's dead. So you stab him in the heart. You don't cut off a hand so he can't punch you. You don't cut off a leg so he can't walk. You're just gonna stab him in his big meaty everything. What?
I don't know if there's any explanation for that. All right. So we're going to have to cut this short. I love this conversation. It's a lot of fun talking about a show that I've loved for so long. Thank you guys for coming on. It's been so much fun. This has been Voices of Color, Story Breakdown. See you in the next episode.
Peace.
If you liked the episode, please like and subscribe to the Voices of Color Writing Podcast. You can leave us comments on our website, thevoicesofcolor.com, or on our Facebook page by the same name. We love hearing from our listeners. Thank you.